Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. Emotions are everything in our life. Everything we do centers around emotions, our relationships. Even when you make a purchase in a store, you're doing that based on your emotions. How can we learn to use those emotions to our best advantage? We're going to talk about that today. Emotional learning is the topic with this gentleman. He is amazing as a licensed clinical social worker. He's a psychotherapist. Dr. Barry Pilson joins us today on the program. Hey, Barry, how are you?
I'm good, Steve. Thank you. It's good to talk to you again.
You too. Great to have you back on here. And
thank you.
The emotional thing here is challenging for many of us. I'm going to, right out of the gate, I'm going to say that I'm part of a men's group. Been with them like about 5 months. Been very interesting, impactful. But one of the top things that are said is not to let your emotions show so much, because it'll get you into situations that maybe you can't get out of. It's the first thing that comes to mind when we talk about emotion, because it's kind of a big thing in this group. Emotional learning, how do you define that?
Well, that's interesting what you just told me, because men, first of all, I'm glad you're in a men's group. I think it's very helpful. Men tend to get to a certain change in a certain stage in life, and they stop associating so much with other men, and their friends group often will shrink. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not involved in associations or other types of activities, but as far as a personal group, oftentimes that shrinks, and that's where our emotions actually can come forth. But the bad news is culturally and socially, there's sort of a belief that the less emotions that you bring forth, especially for men, quote, the better off you are. You might get in trouble if you express some feelings. So the real issue beyond that, I would say, is that, and it's our culture, it doesn't just apply to men, it applies to everybody, is how do you process your emotions? How do you regulate your emotions? How do you understand your emotions? And really, the emotions are, like you said at the beginning of the talk, are extremely important in terms of our life quality, our decision making, our sense of self, really our sense of the world, to be honest. It's really more emotional than anything else. The emotions often dictate how we think. Certainly, they dictate how we feel, and they dictate how we behave as well.
Do you find that many
I'll say
times
that at the beginning.
that we don't even, and thank you, your thoughts about the men's group, because I agree with you 100% there. And I joined on a whim. I figured, let me try this. It's out of my wheelhouse. Let me see how this is going to go. And it's been impactful. Do you think that many of us haven't even identified what our emotions are when we're in a situation? We're just going with, our gut, our programming, our subconscious, and we really haven't identified what we're truly feeling?
Yes, we're very reactive, and especially, again, in this information age that we live in, where we're constantly bombarded with information, where, it's not just about the media, but it's also about how people connect through social media. And it's all about, being triggered, being reactive, saying certain things, reacting in certain ways. And again, most of that is basically what's happening is our emotions are being hijacked at times, especially, again, in this information age that we live in. For instance, fear. Fear is a tremendously motivating and salient emotion. It's probably our biggest, quickest emotion that dictates behavior. And we have a lot of fear. We live in a fear-based culture for the most part. And, that's difficult. We sort of try to counter that with, pursue what you find joyful. Pursue what you find, blissful, which is a good idea. I'm not saying that. But really, it's fear can dominate. And that's a big deal. And if you think about how we're constructed as people, as really how our brains are actually constructed, if you want to put it like that, or how they're programmed, fear dominates off. There are other emotions. That's the issue. The issue is how do you minimize your fear, move into a rewarding process that is helpful, Okay. All right.
So are you?
I'll say that again at the beginning.
I'm, it's coming clearer here in that
Okay.
the fear gets in the way of your emotions more times than not. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah. Well, I say, see, the fear is an emotion. It's just
Okay.
that it's a dominant emotion. Okay. A lot of our brain is devoted to dealing with fear, which makes sense to us as a species in terms of survival. Okay. Now, the way we've evolved over time is a lot of our survival is now really addressed by our culture and our social networks and our ways of governing. There's a lot of things going on that people just don't even think about, which they don't really need to think about. About, you're not out in the forest foraging and trying to survive, being attacked by wild animals. You're most part you're in communities where a lot of things are basically addressed for you, not for you, but they're addressed. The question is how do you access, things? And anyway, so fear is kind of a anachronistic emotion at this point, though it really does motivate us and gets us going. Okay.
I didn't know that fear would be considered an emotion.
Well, that's interesting, huh?
Yeah.
It is. Think about it. All right. Think about when if you feel fearful, you can call it scared. You can call it
Anxious.
well, besides being scared, it's a threat. You feel threatened. Okay. And when you feel threatened, a lot of your body and your brain go into certain gears that then motivate how you think and how you act.
Would you say anger is an emotion as well?
Yes, absolutely. Anger is an emotion. In fact, anger is probably a quick reactive emotion to fear. Okay. And certainly anger gives you, fear may give you a sense of vulnerability. Anger may give you a sense of power, you see. So if I feel angry, I'm seeking to control or, seeking to move forward in some kind of way. I'm energized is the point. And when you're energized, you can feel empowered. Now, again, if we look at our culture, there are lots of better ways to feel empowered, okay, other than anger. Anger is a short-term, quick reaction to ending up feeling better in terms of vulnerability. Long-term, it doesn't serve you too well, to be honest.
I've had this debate with friends that anger is not just anger. There's always something else attached to it. In fact, anger is really not anything. It's something else. It could be
that's right.
Sadness. Like you said, it could be fear. But it's usually, maybe if not, and this is the debate, it's not anger. It's something else.
Yes. Good, Steve. In fact, now you're pulling into me as a psychotherapist, okay? Anger is the great cover-up emotion. And it is a good process of what's underneath the anger. You already alluded to it. Is it sadness? Is it hurt? Is it loneliness? Okay. And the quick answer is that it's easier to be angry than it is to be lonely. It's easier to be angry than it is to be sad. It's easier to be angry than it is to be vulnerable. So it's kind of it can be a seemingly soothing emotion, all right? But the impact of anger often is it alienates other people. You can get kind of guilty yourself, and it can kind of put you in a very isolated state, okay? And that's another problem in our culture is despite all these, quote, vehicles for connection, the real question is why do people feel so alienated, And
Wow.
you gotta address that. Even your joining a men's group is addressing the sort of the permeation of alienation in our culture, which has been a problem for years and years, really, especially in the modern age.
Yeah. But so two things here. You said, and I've never heard it put this way before, that anger is a soothing emotion. Like you said, it's a quick fix. It's like you have a cold. You take decongestant just because you want to feel better. So
That's right.
just gravitating to the anger just will help you feel better but it's also
Right.
basically covering up what's really driving that. And to your point on the men's group and men in our society regarding emotion, men are always told from children, big boys don't cry. Man up.
Right.
Come
Right.
on. What? So
Right.
we've thrown all our emotions down and we don't display them like we could or should. And somebody told me that little boys are much more emotionally intelligent at, say, 5, 6 years old, maybe even 4, much more emotionally intelligent than girls, and they don't know how to handle it. So that's why boys are always perceived to be rambunctious, because they don't know what to do with this emotion. So it turns into just, craziness, if you want to call it that. Have you ever
Well,
heard
actually,
that?
well, first of all, I think you're making a very good point about boys being much more rambunctious. And that's more of an emotional kind of dynamic underneath that. Okay. That, they're, naturally at that age, you're not going to be able to articulate how you're feeling.
Right.
You're gonna act it out.
Exactly.
Behave.
Yep.
And your motor activity is much more stronger. I don't know about the argument that boys are more emotionally intelligent than girls. People might argue with you about that.
I'd be curious. I heard that, and actually somebody told me that they were writing a book. They were researching it, and they were going to write a book about it. But it does kind of make me wonder why boys are more rambunctious at that early age, and just what you said, that they don't know how to handle the emotion they have. So I wonder, maybe they got more going on there than girls do at that age. Don't know. Just but one thing
I don't know. It's interesting. Girls tend to be a little more verbal than boys, when they're that age, okay, or younger. And boys, again, their emotions really get translated a lot of times through their motor activity.
Okay, so maybe that's what's going on there. If they're not more emotional intelligent, they're not expressing it like a girl might,
right.
And they are expressing it in a different way, motor.
Right. And you see a lot of that. This is where boys get screwed sometimes, because that motor activity, that excess motor activity, not excess. You don't even have to call it that. That motor activity doesn't go well, especially in schools. Okay, where they have to quote sit still. Right. And then they get labeled as ADHD. I mean, sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it doesn't exist, because it does, but they're not in good environments a lot of times where they can express themselves or where they can concentrate. Okay? It can go on and on. In our culture, what's happened over time as gender equality has made some progress is that men and boys are getting further and further behind. They're graduating less in schools. There are a lot more women in colleges. There's more women in professional schools. You can go on and on.
Sure.
And I'm not saying, but I would guess that part of it is that boys get behind. Just in terms of their motor activity has not been really expressed well. Now, as they get older, junior high and high school, especially, or even elementary school, where they have the sports outlet, they get to channel a lot of their motor activity. Of course, girls do that too now, but that helps. Okay, that helps. Believe me.
So when we talk about emotional learning, what are some things that we can do to keep our emotions in check, or really check in to really know how we're feeling at the moment?
Yeah, that's again, as a psychotherapist, one of the things that I was trying to make the point of is that psychotherapy is just one method of change. There's lots of methods of people changing, and it's not just, he needs or she needs to go to therapy. We hear that a lot. We used to never hear that. Now we hear that all the time. But there's lots of ways to change. You'd already mentioned your men's group, just different social networks, just exercising, participating in certain healthy rituals, and other activities that you find interesting and find helpful. Okay, so there's two main systems in the brain that sort of deals with your thoughts and your feelings and your behavior. That's the stress system okay, which is triggered essentially by fear a lot of times, or the feeling of being threatened, or even change that you don't know how to process. And then there's a reward system, okay? And the reward system is kind of the inborn process in the brain where you get a sense of pleasure, a sense of feeling good. It's not pleasure in the sense of, aha, it's more pleasure in the sense of, I'm feeling comfortable, I'm feeling relaxed, I'm feeling, heard, I'm feeling seen, etc. So the larger question is, how do we help people move a lot of times from their stress system, which may be dominating and which may be, what they're trying to always deal with, which may be motivating them, to how do they operate? How do they change utilizing or connecting? That's really it. Connecting to their reward system. Okay. What do they find pleasurable? What do they find helpful? The easiest thing to do, by the way, and you hear this all the time in all fields, is to sort of try to set goals that are achievable, and not measure in terms of a perfect outcome, but measure whether you're sort of moving towards that goal, and that gives you a sense of accomplishment, and gives you a sense, and that's the emotional, that sense of accomplishment and pleasure it gives you a sense of self that is more effective in the world, that's what we need, not a sense of, oh my God, there's nothing I can do. I'm helpless. I'm hopeless. I'm incompetent, whatever. It's, hey, I'm a human being. I'm trying. I don't know everything, but this is what I can do to address the issue. And basically that's it. Do you address things or do you avoid things? In stress reality, you avoid things. In reward reality, you approach things.
There's a term that's going on around now, trending on social media and everything. It's called glimmer, a glimmer.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
And I believe that you just said that.
Yes,
where
I did.
It's the little wins. Find those little things that you can do in your just daily activities that will just make you feel better, like you're moving forward. And I think the term glimmer comes from glimmer of hope. So the little glimmers, what can a glimmer be? Let's say you had to pay bills and you've been putting it off. I finally got to it last night. I feel good. I got that. Check that box. Move that one off. Glimmer could be got to work and I had 10 extra minutes. My gosh, that never happens. I had a second to think. The little things that can make you feel better.
That is exactly it. Okay, that is that. And what you're doing with that glimmer, I was wondering why it was so popular. Now I know. But what that glimmer is that little ding of dopamine in your brain that says, aha, you got this, or you did this. So the trick is to recognize that. The trick is to validate that and to acknowledge that, not to devalue it. Sometimes people will accomplish things and then they'll tag it to, oh, that's no big deal. That doesn't matter. Or doesn't everybody do that,
Mm-hmm.
And then in therapy, in psychotherapy, you say, well, whoa, slow down. Don't discount what you just said or what you just did, okay? You don't have to get grandiose about it, but recognize it. And validate it.
Yeah. And, pat yourself on the back. It's a little pat,
it's
a little tiny one.
A little one.
Do you feel, this is what I've learned in my journey, and I'm curious how you feel about this. Once you start recognizing these things, emotions, how they're processed, it's easier to go from kind of lost, feeling of lost. Yeah, we all have it every once in a while. So, that didn't go well. There's that. Where you could go down the road of negativity, but when you get in the practice of working on things, you turn the car faster to the positive side, the glimmer side. And it could be like that. You could just turn your head and be like, things are okay. It's not as bad as I thought it was.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It's pivoting to that larger picture. Okay. And that's a quick, not trick, but a quick method to really get you going. As you just said, and you described it perfectly, turning in a direction that's more helpful to you. Okay. And it's more meaningful to you, and recognize that. Say, when I look at my life, right now, if I take an inventory, this is what's working, etc. Now you have to be honest too about what's not working. If I'm in a toxic relationship that's really not working for me, what do I do about it? That's another good question, really.
And I feel, and I started doing this. I put this off for the longest time, and I don't know why I did. Keeping a journal, writing thoughts down.
Yes.
Writing thoughts down. It's like I'm my own therapist. I just talk to myself in my journal. What am I feeling? How's this day going? Et cetera, et cetera. It's beneficial and so cool to look back at, years from now. It's like, oh, that's what I was saying. Well, look at the progress I made.
Yeah. Or even 6 months or a year from now,
Absolutely. Yeah.
By the way, what you're doing with that, which has shown to be, again, an effective tool of change, is you're just monitoring yourself. That's all. You're monitoring yourself, It's kind of like taking your blood pressure, once a week or every day. You're monitoring yourself. And in monitoring yourself, you're already building in a process of change.
You got to be honest with yourself too, because I found when I was first writing in the journal, like I would write some, personal stuff, and nobody else is going to see it. You hide it away. But then I started realizing, like, would say to myself, "You're not really being honest. Come on, let's go a little bit deeper in this."
Good.
It's almost as if you don't want to face you. Almost as if you don't want to face your feelings and everything that's going on in your life.
Right.
We literally have a minute left here.
Okay.
Any other suggestions, like journals and things like that? Those little things that can help move us forward.
Yeah. Again, just what I just said. Take an inventory of what you do find rewarding, and you don't have to add them all into your life all at once. Everything is slow, and change that is lasting is slow. Okay. Again, it's kind of like losing weight, which is not really always a good goal, but it has to be slow, and it's not just about how much you weigh. Okay. It's really about, your eating and your activity and other things,
The inventory, I haven't heard that word used in a long time.
Yeah,
That's a good one. And it's not like you're going to put on the rose-colored glasses and walk around. It's like everything's great, butterflies, sunshine, lollipops. No, we have a lot of things to be grateful for. And if you just take a look at them, take that inventory, that's good. That's good in my life. Got to work on that. That's actually pretty good there. That's good there. You find the glimmers.
That's it.
A lot easier.
Glimmers, inventory, very good. Monitoring, those are your keys.
Monitoring, yeah. And never thought of it that way. A check-in. Great stuff today, Barry. How do we find you? If somebody wants to ask you some questions, maybe even work with you on a therapy level, how do they do that?
Yeah, I'm on a website, of course. It's just Barry Pilson, Pilson, Ph.D.com. Okay.
Starts there with a conversation.
And we're going to continue this series and talk about other things, okay?
Love it. Barry, thank you so much for being here today.
All right. See you next week.
You know what? You're a glimmer. You really are. You really are. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
We'll be right back.
All right.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her.
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge.
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! It's now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend.
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.